Hope all of you had a good lunch. How many of you know who is the farmer who has produced that food? How many of you know? And do you know whether that farmer is still alive? I'm asking this question because there is a serious crisis over there where every day more than 48 farmers are committing suicide. Government of India publishes annually, the Crime Records Bureau publishes records, and the data shows that in the last 22 years, more than 3 lakh farmers have committed suicide. Several parties have changed, several policies have changed, several technologies have changed, but the situation has not improved. In fact, if you look at the census data between 2001 and 2011, the data shows that every day more than 2,000 farmers have left farming. Why this is happening? Why we are all not worried about the people who actually produce food for all of us? There is about 40% increase in 2015 alone in the suicides which has happened. And that shows the grave situation in which farming is happening in this country. Do you know the average income of farmers in this country is around 6,200 rupees? Average income. And this is an income of 54% of the Indian population. Average income of 54% of population which depend on agriculture. And in this population which is depending on agriculture, if you take about 85% of them who are small and marginal farmers who holds about 2 hectares of land, less than 2 hectares of land, their income is around 5,000 rupees per month. And their monthly expenditure is far higher than this. So every month they end up in borrowing from outside, and they are unable to make their ends meet. This is the situation in which the farming lies today. As a result, farming is becoming unviable and farmers are becoming indebted. And on average across the country today, if you look at 47,000 rupees is the household indebtedness. Every household which is depending on agriculture has about 47,000 rupees as a loan. And near about 52% of farming population, farming households are indebted. But between states, if you take the numbers, again, this is about an average figure. But if you actually look at the gap between the states, it is varied. States like, for example, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana has about 90% farmers who are indebted. Punjab is about 60-70% farmers indebted. Kerala, for example, has about 2 lakh rupees average debt for household. So why all this is happening is something we all need to understand. And in a situation where institutional credit access to farmers is very low, today its highest is around 21% across the country. So many of them actually borrow from private money lenders. Today, if you look at the budget, 2018 budget says 11 lakh crores has been given as farm loans in this country. And in this, 48% goes to 5 cities, 5 urban cities. The farmer share in the farm credit is far lower, far lower. As a result, they are actually borrowing money from private money lenders, and private money lenders at a very, very high interest rate. Can you imagine the interest rates range from about 36% to 120% interest? And at that rate, when they are borrowing, when agriculture itself is not viable, repaying becomes a serious problem, and that's where indebtedness steps in. But when we talk about all these crises, various political parties in the last few years have announced loan waivers. Many of you might have read in the newspapers, across the country about 1 lakh crores has been waived farm loans. But where did it go? Why it has not solved the problem? It has not solved the problem because when the institutional credit access itself is low, waiving of institutional credit again benefits only those people who has access to the institutional credit. For all those who are outside the institutional credit, they didn't get any benefit out of it. So about 1 lakh crores has been waived, and again that has gone into the hands of the people in these 5 or 6 metro cities across the country. And who are they? They are the ones who hold land, absentee landlords. They still own the land. They get all the benefits from the government. But the people who are actually tilling the land and taking the risk of cultivation are not getting any benefit out of it. This is something which we all need to understand when we look at agrarian crisis. Another important area which we need to also understand in agriculture is the green revolution and the model of agriculture which India has adopted. We were all told to become self-sufficient, we need to move into a model of agriculture where high input intensive agriculture can increase our productivity and India can become self-sufficient. But look at these photographs. Who got self-sufficiency and who lost self-sufficiency? As a nation, India got self-sufficiency in food. Today, we produce enough food, but these are the farmers who are standing in queues to get their seeds, standing in queue to get fertilizers. They lost their self-sufficiency. Depending on external inputs, has not only lost their self-sufficiency, but also has increased their cost of production. Cost of productions have increased significantly today. Per unit product, any product we take, the cost of cultivation, if you compare across the world, we are so high. High cost economy we are getting into. That is for two reasons. One, there is no proper extension services. There is no support for the farmers to make right choices about their cropping patterns. As a result, only 2-3 crops area is increasing. If you take Madhya Pradesh, it's a soybean which occupies more than half of the cultivated area in Madhya Pradesh in Kharif season. Across the country, paddy and cotton is the area which is increasing significantly. In the absence of good extension services, farmers tend to depend on private money lenders who are also dealers, who are also buyers. So the self-sufficiency is lost over there. Second important area in this whole process is understanding agriculture as a linear process where if I put in more inputs, you get more output. That's not true. Agriculture is a cyclic process. How much you recycle the entire resources in agriculture is an important issue. Otherwise, you get nutrients from outside, dump it over there, and whatever crop is produced, the grain you sell off and rest of the straw you burn. And today, you might have heard about the Delhi, which is getting caught in the smog during the transition between Kharif and Rabi season, where a farmer burns their farms and then that smoke reaches the city and then entire Delhi gets choked. That is happening because if farmers have to dispose of their crop residues well and then use, they don't get any support. If they dispose it, they just throw it off, burn it off, and then buy chemical fertilizers and again put it back into their farm, they get a subsidy. So we need to think of mechanisms of actually moving into a new model of agriculture where more sustainable production systems can be supported. Agriculture, within agriculture, there are crops which are very water intensive. What you see here is a paddy. Many of you had rice in your meal today. Do you know how much water is consumed by rice in its production? Every kg of rice takes about 5,000 liters of water. It's about a tanker of water. An acre of paddy takes about 60 lakh liters of water. 60 lakh liters of water is 100 families' annual consumption. And more farmers switching over to paddy is because more and more consumers are switching over to paddy. Sometime back, you have seen in newspapers that when entire Maharashtra was reeling under serious drought, water was sent in trains. You have seen those long trains which were going. And do you know you need 12 such trains to produce 1 acre of paddy? 12 such trains to produce 1 acre of cotton. 12 such trains to produce 1 acre of sugarcane. And more farmers switching over to such crops actually mines groundwater. We also need to make a switch over in terms of moving towards crops which are less water intensive, and that can only happen if all of us also make choices in terms of switching over to foods which can be grown without such water. There's also investments need to be made from the agricultural research where practices can be developed where with less water crops can be grown. But today that is not the case. There is no support provided for farmers who are actually making eco-friendly choices. All the choices, all the support is only for the farmers who are actually moving towards high water intensive crops. As a result, today across the country, if you take, water has become critical factor between the reason for fights between states, the fights between districts. You might have heard about the Kaveri water dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. You have seen between Punjab and Uttar Pradesh about water sharing, and India and Bangladesh, India and Pakistan, water wars which are going on. All this is because you need more water, and water is limited in this world. That's something which we all need to understand. Water comes only from rain. If you're talking about groundwater, it is the rain which has fallen yesterday, day before, or a decade back, or a century back. What is accumulated as groundwater is the rain which is fallen sometime back. If you're talking about surface water which gets onto your, through your canals and all, is the one which has fallen in an extensive area which is collected. Only source of water is rain. So unless your entire cropping patterns are based on the rainfall you receive, you are not going to meet your water needs. And we are soon going to end up in a situation where water will not be available, and water is becoming a commodity already. Another important area which we all need to be worried about within agriculture is chemical pesticides. High use of chemical pesticides is causing harm both in production as well as in consumption as well. Less than 1% of the chemical pesticides kill insects. Rest of it all comes into your food. So whatever you are eating has pesticide residues. Couple of months back, there is a report released by National Institute of Nutrition in Hyderabad, which says the pesticide residues in children, when their urine samples were tested, was 40 times higher than what is permitted internationally. 40 times higher. They didn't test your urine. If they have tested your urine, all of you will have more or less similar doses of pesticide residues in your food. So the ill health, what you are all seeing, is because of these residues in your food. So what do we do? What do we do? Some of us who are working with various institutions, and before that I was in Indian Revenue Service. After studying in agriculture, I thought I should do something about farming. And after studying for 10 years in agriculture, and similarly some more friends who are worried about it, we all came together and started what we call as the Center for Sustainable Agriculture, which tries to look at the models of agriculture which can be dependent on the locally available resources. The first and foremost is save water. Save every drop of water which falls on your farm. And even in a situation where there's a 500 millimeters of rainfall, you can harvest water up to 50 lakh liters, and then you can have 2 crops which can be safely be grown. But harvesting is very, very important. Similarly, move towards organic production, organic and natural farming. There are a number of models across the country which can be taken up, and we try to train farmers in adapting those practices. In Andhra Pradesh, we worked with farmers, lakhs of farmers. Between 2004 and 2010, the pesticide use could be brought down by over 50% in the state. Mainly because we could establish a good extension system using the experienced farmers going to the villages and working on that. And it is quite possible. Today, there are a number of villages which have become organic. We're also trying to work on how to improve governance, how to improve support systems for farmers, and we call it as Kisan Mitra. We run a helpline where farmers can call us, and then we work with the district administration to see that all support services are available for the farmers. This is quite possible. Third important area is how do we connect consumers with producers. Many times it's not just the government or market which can play a role. As consumers, each one of us can play. What we are trying to do is organize farmers into cooperatives, organize farmers also into cooperatives, and build connections between them. This is a group of cooperatives which are selling directly to urban farmers, urban consumers, and we also run nutritional counseling where consumers can make right choice about their food. Also important, you all need to think about, whenever there is an issue and discussion happening about food, how many of you actually respond? When there is a discussion going on about, say, some pesticides which are being sold illegally or genetically modified crops sold illegally, all of us feel it is not our responsibility. But it is all your responsibility, because if it is grown there, it comes to your plate. Unless it is regulated in production, it comes into your plate. So you need to be worried about all these and then be an active consumer to do that. The example which I said about Andhra Pradesh, where we could work with large number of farmers to reduce the pesticide use, was part of a toxic food episode of Satyameva Jayate. And after this, large number of people, large number of states, farmers got interested in this model of agriculture. And today we are working in 6 states, working with lakhs of farmers in terms of helping them to make switchover. So one talk show could make that difference. One event can make a difference. talk to people, whatever you understand, talk to people, start talking in your residential complexes, start talking in your workplaces, start talking about in your residential areas about how you can work with farmers, and then make a shift. Two examples I want to present before you. This is one village called Yanabavi. This is near Hyderabad, about 80 kilometers from Hyderabad, which became organic. And today it has become an iconic village where number of farmers across the country and across the world come and learn from these farmers. This is another interesting example. This village is called Dorli. You can Google and then find a lot of stories written about this village. This village was put up for sale by farmers in 2005. After a number of farmers suffered losses and suicides happened. And 2006, we had a discussion with the farmers and said, let's go back to farming and then let's try and find our own solutions. Today, all farmers are back to farming. All of them could repay their loans. The village became very sustainable. It is quite possible. What it needs is a support. How you stand with them, how you care for them, and then how you get government support systems work for them is an important area. Examples are in front of us. If half of India is in deep crisis, rest half of us sitting here, it's our responsibility to stand up for farmers. I think as a nation, if half of us are dying, rest half has to stand up and then give our due share. People who have skills have to extend their skills. People who have money have to extend your money. Worry about farmers, worry about your food, worry about the natural resources, what is happening to them. Unless villages sustain, unless farming sustains, unless food production becomes healthy, all of us will perish. Remember that. Care for those who feed the nation. Thank you.